Hello, this is Jacob, co-host of the Take Your Medicine podcast. I'm doing a solo video to talk about some abortion nonsense. NPR published this article, 7 persistent claims about abortion fact-checked, and I read through it and I found a number of problems and deliberately misleading statements to be charitable. So I figured I'd go through it and just give my thoughts on it. And so yeah, let's go in. So first claim. There's big support for ending Roe in America. So there's actually a conflation here. They're saying support for ending Roe and support for abortion. Now, those are two separate things, right? But they're conflating them. So this is according to the Pew Research Center. 61% say that abortion should be legal in all or most cases. Now, that is an unfortunate number, and when I dug into this, I didn't see any reason to believe that this polling was flawed or misleading. But the problem is that they're rating the claim that there's big support for ending Roe in America as false, and then citing the support for the legality of abortion. And of course, the issue is that Roe v. Wade being overturned doesn't mean that abortion is going to be made illegal in every state. And so this is kind of just like a moot point. These are not the same question, right? I think studies or polls have shown that when people are taught what Roe is and asked if they support returning the issue to the states, the majority or close to majority of people say that that should be the case. So this is the first misleading claim right there, and this is the real big one right here, which is the claim that after Roe, abortions skyrocketed. Now, first of all, I don't know where they're getting these claims. They could just be making these claims up out of thin air to debunk them for their own purposes. I've never heard anyone on the right wing claiming that abortion skyrocketed after Roe. But let's take that at face value. Let's say that that is a claim that's made. What they've done here is they've linked a graph or shown a graph, which is abortions per 1,000 women. Now, this is the tricky part here. It says, after the decade after Roe v. Wade, it significantly decreased to below the 1973 level. But they're doing abortions per 1,000 women. They're not doing abortions per 1,000 pregnant women, right? So the explanation for this graph could be that there are just fewer total pregnancies happening, but they're using women as a standard rather than pregnant women as a standard. And I went to the Guttmacher Institute, which I believe is a left-wing organization. I went to their own website here, and what you can see is that this is a graph of pregnancy rates. Does that look familiar to the graph of abortions? So you have pregnancies, number of pregnancies per 1,000 women. It's dropping. It rises a little bit after 1973 and then drops dramatically from 1990 onward. And look at this. You have an increase in abortions per 1,000 women up until about 1990, and then it drops. So I think that's pretty clear that the reason why abortions per 1,000 women is going is because the pregnancies per 1,000 women is also going down. So this is actually a very poorly and misleadingly presented graph that doesn't at all represent what they claim it's representing. Okay, claim abortion is dangerous. I don't see any reason to believe why abortion would be dangerous. We have medical technology. The abortion procedure, while disgusting and grisly, isn't really that technically complex. So, and I've also never heard anyone on the right wing saying that abortion is dangerous. So I don't know why they included this. It sounds like they're doing a laundry list technique where they just find a bunch of claims so they can debunk them all. So it looks like the argument got destroyed. But again, I've never seen anyone claiming that abortion is dangerous. In fact, the only people claiming that abortion is dangerous are the left-wingers who claim that when Roe goes away, then back alley abortions are going to cause women to die. So, maybe they're projecting a little bit. Okay, and then this is a claim that's just completely ridiculous, but there's one point I want to make about this. The only people getting abortions are straight cisgender women. Okay, so first of all, I reject the term cisgender completely because it's just made up and there's no reason to use it. But the other problem here is that this is what the left-wingers do with fact checks all the time, is that they'll add a bunch of qualifiers to the statement or to the claim to make it so specific that they can just debunk everything together, right? So the only people getting abortions are straight women. Let's just say the only people getting abortions are straight women. Well, they're adding the straight qualifier there. And so, of course, that's not going to be a true statement. There are certainly going to be some women who aren't straight who are getting abortions for whatever reason. And then, of course, they add the other qualifier, which is cisgender, which I'm not up to date on the lingo, but I think that's the same thing as straight. But they do this all the time with the fact checks. They just add a bunch of qualifiers to make the statement so specific that when they go on to quote unquote debunk it, they can just throw the entire root of the claim out with it. So if this claim was honestly represented as the only people getting abortions are women, then that would be it. That would be an irrefutable statement. Claim people are getting abortions late in pregnancy. Over 90% of abortions happen in the first trimester. I'm kind of saddened to see that this is not 100% of abortions happening early. This claim means that there are some abortions that are happening late, which is an absolute travesty. But yeah, I don't think the pro-life argument isn't centered around when in the pregnancy abortions are happening. The pro-life argument is abortions shouldn't be happening at all, period, regardless of when they're happening. And there are some claims that there are certain bills or certain laws or certain practitioners of abortion that do late-term abortions, and the stats here saying 1% of abortions occur after 21 weeks actually corroborates that claim that there are late-term abortions happening legally or illegally, and that's very disturbing. So if anything, this graph that they show just proves the right-wingers right to an extent when they say that late-term abortions are happening, even though the left likes to deny it a lot. Okay, here's another dubious claim. Fetuses feel pain early in a pregnancy. So, of course, this has the classic medical researchers agree, which basically means that that's not true. But just broadly speaking, even if this claim was true, this argument that fetuses can feel pain is not relevant to either side of the argument. I don't hear left-wingers saying that we can abort babies because they don't feel pain, and I don't hear right-wingers saying we shouldn't abort babies because they feel pain. That's not in anyone's argument anywhere, at least not the mainstream arguments for pro-abortion or pro-life. So I don't really understand why they're bringing this into the fold, except to do the laundry list thing that I just mentioned earlier. But I wanted to make a larger point about this conditionality. It's like this is indicative of a desire to build up all of this like rickety scaffolding around the moral issue, like coming up with all kinds of conditions that make abortion okay. So it's like, oh, the baby's, before the point of viability, the fetus can't feel pain, the woman needs the bodily autonomy. So like all of those things together add up to an eventual justification of ending a human life. And then I think the right wing can fall into this trap too. It's like, well, we'll accept a compromise on viability. It's like, no, you cannot build this scaffolding on what should be a concrete moral issue. Either ending a human life in the womb is okay or it's not. Once you start getting into all this conditionality, you end up create the moral gray area, right? The only positions where there is no moral gray area is you cannot end a human life, period, regardless of what stage of development it is in, or intentionally, I should say you can't end it intentionally, or you can end human life at any point whenever you want for whatever reason. Those are the only two moral positions that don't come with tons of gray area. If you take any other position beyond that, you are the one creating the gray area. So that's the broader point that I wanted to make. And then people are religious don't get abortions. They rate this claim as false, but of course this claim is true because if you were a devout Christian, if you were religious, then you wouldn't be doing this. Now, of course, I don't know what other religions have to say. I'm pretty sure Islam and Judaism are also against abortion. So maybe there is Satanism, maybe accepts abortion. But the three major religions, which most people either identify as or don't identify as, all oppose abortion. So this idea that you can be religious here, so like, 24% of Catholics get abortions. You're not a Catholic if you get an abortion. That is explicitly against the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Protestant, it's hard to see, like, evangelical Protestant getting abortion. You're not religious, or at least you don't take your faith very seriously at the moment that you get an abortion. Now, of course, Christians would say that you can repent from this sin and eventually turn to God and all that stuff. But at the moment you get the abortion, it's hard to believe that you're a religious person. So this stat, I think, is just completely junk. And yeah, so that's it. So really the only, like, these are all very, very bad. I just, the abortion skyrocketed graph here is just 100% completely misleading, as well as this support for ending Roe. That's also very misleading because they use a statistic from a different issue and conflate it with the claim. So those are the two obviously misleading ones. The rest of them are just fake fact checks designed to make this article look really impressive, but it's not. So anyway, there's a thorough dismantling of the NPR abortion article fact check. And yeah, stay tuned for more solo videos.